We are live here at the Republican National Convention at the Daily Signal. I'm Tyler O'Neill, and I'm honored to be joined by Andrew Klavan, one of the most fun, best-selling author, host of the Andrew Klavan Show, now with the Daily Wire. You've been all over. You were the guy making PJ TV run back when it did, and then I joined PJ Media after you, I guess, but we were close.
Yeah, well, listen, they really were the pioneers. They really started the kind of thing that I don't think there would be a Daily Wire if there hadn't been a PJ TV first. So,
yeah, well, I think we want to dive into where you see the GOP right now. You were saying, and I think it's fascinating, where they've moved as a party, and there's this new version that's kind of boiling up here at the RNC.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think if you look over in Europe at what's happening in England and France, you see that the right is divided, where the left is always capable of bringing themselves together. So you saw what happened in France, where the right won the first round of their elections and then kind of lost in the second round because the left just dumped candidates that they thought couldn't win and only centered on the candidates who could. And the same thing is...
Sounds very familiar.
Yeah, same thing is happening here. This kind of, I don't know whether, I call it the Mitch McConnell Republican Party, where he tells one thing to the base, but he does another thing for the donors, basically, and none of the things that we care about ever get done. The borders don't close, the woke doesn't go away. If you read the Wall Street Journal, it's a great paper, but you can't write an anti-illegal immigration op-ed for the Wall Street Journal because rich people like their illegal immigrants. It means they don't have to pay legal workers as much, and it's like, I think that, and woke they don't care about woke. Rich people benefit off decadence, and so they actually, none of that bothers them. But the people care, it ruins your life. If you can't express your opinion without getting called to HR, if you can't express your opinion without getting kicked off YouTube, without getting kicked off all the social media, these are the things that really make people offended. And open borders are offensive just philosophically, the fact that nobody's enforcing our laws. And so this move toward populism is really what lifted Trump. And so you got all these people from the old kind of Reagan coalition, which was great in its time. But if you think about it, it was the neoconservatives who wanted a strong national defense and a lot of intervention. It was the economic conservatives who started out under Reagan as part of a conservative coalition. It ended up this kind of Ayn Rand, capitalism is everything, we can globalize, and sure, you're out of work, but now your iPhone is cheaper because it's made in China. So each time, and then the neocons, of course, started a 20-year war for no reason. So like each time this kind of failed, the evangelicals kind of went off the rails, which was the third leg of the Reagan stool.
Yeah, the social conservatives.
And then when the populism movement raised up, all the old conservatives were like, this is outrageous. Well, no, you failed. It's time to move on. It's a new time. New things are happening. And so this convention is really interesting because off of the impetus of Trump's personality, his powerful personality, and this assassination attempt, which I don't know about you, but I saw that picture of him with his fist up and I thought, I'll vote for this guy 50 times. Like, are you kidding?
Don't say that too loud. That's voter fraud.
Well, it's like we now have a choice between a president who can't get up a flight of stairs without falling down.
I know.
And a president who actually gets back up after he's been shot in the head.
And raises his hand and says,
spits the
fight!
bullet out. Yeah.
Fight! Yeah, no, exactly.
Like,
it's like that.
Who do I want to be leading my country? And so I think off the power of that, this transition is happening to the GOP in a kind of peaceful manner. The old guard, the Mitt Romneys, the John McCains, who nobody wanted except for the establishment. The establishment tried to shove them down our throats. They're gone. They're done. All their outrage at Donald Trump's rudeness and his belligerence and all that. That's all done.
Certainly a minority. They're still in the Senate, though.
They're still
some
there,
of them.
but like nobody, nobody cares what they have to say. And this is the new party. And the appointment of the selection of Vance as vice president just shows that Trump knows exactly what's happening. He just thought, they said that he wasn't even going to do that until after the assassination attempt. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's a move that just says, this is the party now. Get used to it. It's the party now. It's the party next time. It's the party for the next 20 years. And look, what's going to happen now is, let's hope that Trump wins the election. The minute he's done, they'll try and take the party back. The rhinos will try and take the party back. That's what they did with Reagan. You had Reagan. He was remarkable, transformed the country. And then they put in Bush, and he was the old guard, come back again. I don't think that's going to happen if J.D. Vance is in place. I think that that's going to make it very hard to get the party back. And as Mike Lee was pointing out, we were interviewing him earlier, and as he said, the vice president is also president of the Senate. So assuming that they have a majority in the Senate, there'll also be that new Trumpian voice in the Senate as well. So I think this is a remarkable moment because everybody uses the word unity because it doesn't mean, we like that word because it doesn't mean anything, right? But there's the unity of the party, and then there's the unity of the country. The fact that this party is coming together with this kind of unity now means it has a better chance to address the country while the Democrats are trying to get rid of this old man who can't do his job. And while they're stuck with Kamala Harris, they don't really know what they're going to do, and I don't know what they're going to do. So while they're bothering about that, this is a chance for the Republican Party to address the country. And personally, I know a lot of people were upset when Dharmi, had a Sikh prayer, and when what was her name, Amber Rose.
Amber Rose, yeah.
To me, it's like, welcome to the party, pal. As the great Bruce Willis once said, I want all those people to come, and I want the gays in our party. I want everybody in our party. And yeah, do I think our party should have a moral base and a moral vision? Yes, but it's got to be a moral vision that this is politics. This is not the church. This is a place where people should be able to come and think like, yeah, you will fix my economy, you will protect my borders, you'll protect my country, and you'll leave me alone. You don't have to have Pride Month. You don't have to shove rainbow flags down people's throats. But just let me have my life. And I think that's Trump. That's Trump all over. He's a New Yorker. He doesn't care.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that really surprised me was, I've been following the Southern Poverty Law Center for forever. Yeah. Wrote a book about them. They recently put Gays Against Groomers, an actual bona fide LGBT group. Yep. They put it on the LGBTQ hate group label on the hate map with all these Klan chapters and with Family Research Council and Alliance Defending Freedom. And I'm just sitting back here being like, okay, how big has the tent gotten that now even the SPLC is demonizing an LGBT group for disagreeing with transgender.
Well, not only that, because they don't want to go after kids, this is...
Right, exactly. It's just like, how insane. So like, there's this big battle over the abortion thing in the platform, right?
Right.
And like, I understand why a lot of people are not happy with it. But I'm just sitting here looking at what the left is doing on the culture war and shoving these things down our kids' throats. Like, I've decided... our daughter is going to a private Christian school. I live in an area where the public schools are not horrible. Like, they actually score pretty well when it comes to educating kids. But they've gone so woke. I'm like, I don't want my 5-year-old being told that she can become a boy. Right. And, like, that is a red line for me. Like, if there's at all a chance of that, and they're acting like that's chump change. The real battle is, we have to make sure parents can't know that their kid is getting puberty blockers behind their back. Right. Well, I'm just like, how?
And in California, they'll take your child away from you if you're not supportive of this kind of... But it's to me, it's Hitlerian obscenity to butcher a child who can't possibly know whether this is the right thing or not. This is right. It is like these basic stuff. When it comes to abortion, for instance, right? Abraham Lincoln didn't say, I'm going to end slavery. He said,
right. Well, don't tell the South that.
He said, I'm going to stop slavery from expanding into
the territories.
States, right, into the territories. And so you do what you can in politics. It's not the only weapon we have. You know the old expression, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. If all you believe in is politics, then you have to do everything through legislation. But I believe in the culture, and I believe that you can convince people that a child is a child even before it comes out of the womb, and you can't solve your problems by killing people. I mean, it's that,
Yeah,
Bill Maher,
pretty basic.
Bill Maher the other day said, well, it's murder, but I'm okay with it. And I thought, well, okay, but then you're evil,
Yeah.
It gets to be a problem.
Yeah, you're not stupid, you're evil. Like, okay.
I feel the same way about my wife. She annoys me, I kill her, it's just... great idea,
Just
Bill.
inconvenient people.
But
Yeah.
once you've got people like Bill Maher to understand that, it's killing a human being, then the argument, it's just a matter of time. And the reason the South seceded when Lincoln said, I'm not going to spread slavery into the territories, was because they thought, once you say this is wrong, there's no going back because it's so obviously wrong. And the same thing is true of abortion. Once you start to say, like, could we stop at like 6 weeks or 10 weeks? Then people start to say, well, why are you stopping?
Yeah,
Well,
where do you
because
stop?
it's
Why?
wrong.
Right.
And that's the logic that the abortion people are terrified of. And that's why, they keep saying we're radicals because we want to stop it. But all you have to do is say, well, when would you stop it? And they don't answer, And so these are things that, you do what you can in politics. And Trump is a realist, and I completely agree with that. And the other part of this is the woke stuff is evil. It's wicked. And it has to be stopped. The neocons don't care. The Ayn Randians
The libertarians don't care.
And the evangelicals are kind of getting sucked into it, if you ask me. They're starting to...
Well, Meg Basham has been revealing how the money is pushing, and I'm just like, the churches are being infiltrated by this woke ideology.
So, the thing about Trumpian populism, I think Vivek Ramaswamy said it last night, where he just said, we should be able to disagree. Well, once that's true, why do you think Trump did so much to try and stop Elon Musk from taking over Twitter? It's because they don't want us to disagree. The way they win arguments is by terrorizing people. If you protest abortion, the FBI shows up in your home armed at 3 a.m. and carries you off. You're 75 years old. They put you in prison for what's going to be the rest of your life. This is how they only have to do that once or twice to make people stop protesting abortion. And so the great thing about Trumpian populism is it does not care if you try to silence it. How do you silence Donald Trump? They try with a bullet. Even
he
that
gets
didn't
up
work.
again. Yes. No, I'm a big believer in generational theory. I don't know if you've read Neil Howe.
I have not. Read it,
William
but
Strauss.
I know about it. Yeah.
Yeah, he has this theory of this 4-generation cycle where you have, they're kind of like the seasons. You have a spring period like we had after World War II, and then you have moving into a summer where you have a cultural revolution where people are sick of order in the society and they want their own individual ideas, and it's like an awakening, but also, not always positive. And then you start to have an unraveling of the order because that awakening sets in, and then you hit a crisis, and then you get a new order imposed because through the crisis you have, hopefully the society overcomes some evil. And right now in the generational cycle, we are in theoretically the crisis period. And he dates it to beginning with like the financial crisis, and it's like a long crisis. It's probably going to go until middle of next decade. And he thinks things are coming to a head. We're either, looking at a civil war here or a big cataclysmic war abroad that would unify Americans to get us, because I think we ultimately are feeling this dislocation, this discombobulation. We want to come together in a national project, but we also are at loggerheads with each other on so many things that matter. And so I think, according to this cycle, we're coming to a head. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And then pray to God it does get better, because it probably will. But that will be on the other end of something.
I think we just missed a civil war by about
No,
You know,
I know.
And I, and truly praise God for that. I mean, it's like that was a very frightening moment in all kinds of ways. But I think there's a lot of truth to this. You know, I wrote a book about called Truth and Beauty, which is about the Romantic poets, and their time is exactly like this time. Free sex, free love, complete radicalism. The French Revolution was the model for what was supposed to happen everywhere. The getting rid of the priests, getting rid of the kings, getting rid of everything. And all of that failed. And, there's this really interesting moment when Jane Austen, who was this kind of wonderful, wonderful novelist, but a bit of a cynic, a new movement grew up called the evangelicals, which were conservative Christians who said, we want to be evangelical and all this. And at first, Jane Austen said, this is terrible, it's like, we're British, we don't do this sort of thing. And then slowly, as she saw what free love did to women, she thought, maybe they've got a point. And that really transformed into the Victorian era. That's what came after it. So people who think that, progressives think they're progressive because they think it's inevitable that we continue in the same direction. But that's not what happened. After the Roaring '20s, we got the '50s. After this period, you got the Victorian era. There can be a pulling back into a more moral order, a more restrained order that normally is the pinnacle of your society. I mean, the Victorian era was the height of Great Britain, and the 1950s were the height of the American Republic. It could happen again.
Yeah, that's what Neil Howe called the American high.
Yes.
And I think, that, but it's interesting because even though the American high was really great, and we all remember it as being great, at the time, the new generation sees it as stifling. And I think that there's a wisdom there that's saying to every generation, the big change when it happens is a surprise. But we shouldn't be surprised because the changes keep happening again. I mean, he was talking about these cycles in animal populations where, you wouldn't think that caribou would have a reason, but like there's a natural system where the caribou pack is bigger for a time and they migrate or they separate away from each other and then come back together. And like there's this cyclical pattern, and then they're small for a time because something goes wrong. Maybe they're not mating as much. Like who knows? But it seems like they have a sixth sense, sort of like almost divine programming. And I think human society is similar.
That's really interesting.
Where we may have a system that's built in. I mean, the Romans called it the saeculum. Our word secular actually comes from it, although it's kind of a bastardization of the original version because it meant a long human life. And the idea is that if someone lives the longest life, by the time that when they're born, the society will be at a similar period as it is when they're about to die. And so the society moves through these periods, but when you're actually in the period, whatever you grew up with, you see changing around you. And so the old always say, well, it was better when I was growing up.
Right.
And the young always say, well, this is silly. Why can't we change it? And so when the young change it, it makes things more difficult for the next young, and the old dislike it. And I think that
I think there's a lot to this. There's a lot also to the logic of your society falling apart. As you say, the young people say, well, why are we doing this? And nobody remembers why. The generation that built the fences doesn't remember, is gone. And so and the new people don't know why the fence there is just always there. And so they tear it down. You find out, it was there because there was a herd of, savages coming to kill you if you tear down the fence. And so one of the things that I've been kind of predicting for a long time, and I now believe it's taking place, is I've been saying I think there's going to be a religious revival, but it's going to be different from old religious revivals because it's going to come from the intellectual top. Because that's one of the things that actually did happen in the Romantic era, that you had a rebirth of Catholic Christianity called the Oxford Movement. And right now, I see this happening. Today I talked to Russell Brand, who has become a Catholic, Ayaan Hirsi Ali, and I don't think it's just going to be Catholicism, but I do believe it's going to be an intellectual movement where people start to say, oh, you know what? It's okay to talk about the devil. It's okay to talk about God. It's okay to talk about the fact that some things can't be seen, but they exist anyway. And once the intellectuals say it, then it becomes okay for everybody else, you know. And this is right now we have an intellectual class that is living in a fantasy world where men can become women, and where the right and wrong are fictions that we just make up and we can change them any way we want. Clearly untrue, and yet the speed with which they're enforced by the woke minority is incredible. So you say, well, a man can become a woman, and like bang, like that, you're a transphobe if you say, excuse me, but that's not scientific. And so that can't stand. But morality can't stand without some idea of the divine and with some idea of the absolute. And I think that's got to come back, and I think it is coming back. And we talked to John Rich, the country singer, who's got a song called Revelations that just beat out Eminem in the charts, and I laughed. I thought that's the way it's got to be. And I really think, Antonin Scalia, right, the great Supreme Court justice, was doing an interview with, I believe it was New York Magazine, and he mentioned Satan, and he was a devout Catholic. And the interviewer said, "You believe in Satan?" And Scalia, who was like 10 brains put together, one of the most brilliant men ever.
Yes.
He said, "Don't you?" I thought that's the end of that conversation, because
that was the latest oppo on J.D. Vance. I don't know if you heard.
I did hear this,
he believes in the devil.
Yeah.
Oh man, he's not ready for 2024, right?
I know, and this poor man, he only went to Yale. He's not that bright. And it's like, I mean, after a while, it turns out that if you don't believe it, you're the dumb one, and then things change. And I think that's happening. I think that's happening as you and I are sitting here. I believe that's unfolding in the country, and it gives a new basis for a new ways of thinking about freedom, about morality, about the things that underlie our country, our form of government, our dedication to liberty, which doesn't just float in air. Yeah. It rests on a basis of a certain way of thinking, and hopefully that way of thinking, I think, is already coming back.
Wonderful. Why? I pray.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Andrew. This has been phenomenal. Where can people follow you?
Oh, well, I'm on Andrew Klavan on X, and andrewklavan.com has all my stuff. It's an old-fashioned website, but you can find all my books and everything there.
Yeah. Great. Well, thanks again for
It's great
joining
talking
us.
To you. I enjoy it, yeah.
And again, reporting live here at the Republican National Convention, Tyler O'Neill with the Daily Signal, signing off.